The specter of Tom Scott haunts all jet lag seasons.
Welcome to Baggage Claim, an unofficial Jet Lag the Game companion podcast. We're continuing our off-season tradition of rewatching past seasons while waiting for the next one. Today, we're unpacking episode 3 of season 2, Circumnavigation. I'm Jaya.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Kira.
Casey, tell me about a time that you touched a bird.
Well, a very formative time I touched a bird was right after I graduated college. I went for a delightful little hike with my beloved physics advisor, and he had indoor chickens that he loved like they were his children. And I went over to meet him for this hike, and he handed me a chicken into my hands to hold. And then he gave me live worms to feed his chickens.
Kira, how about you? When was the last time you touched a bird?
I touched a bird during my senior spring of college. My school offered free outings, and so I signed up for 100% of their email lists, and so I went on a bird club outing.
Cool.
Where we went bird banding at sunrise.
Ooh.
And so we went to go see how bird banding works, and we got to talk to the scientists and conservationists who were there tagging the birds, and we got to learn how to hold little songbirds. And so I held, with your fingers kind of clutching its neck, except that
you have to make a roller coaster seatbelt with your pointer finger and middle finger for them.
And it was kind of awesome. And then we got to, this was after they had tagged them and done their migration research. And so I got to hold the little tiny songbird and then let it fly off from my hands.
So
it was really cool.
That sounds so fun. The last time I touched a bird, I think, was at the zoo that we went to after my birthday. And they have, an aviary there with a bunch of, I want to say parakeets. But they weren't parakeets. They were some other kind of bird, and they were, bright, colorful, and little. And you could give them $1 and get a couple handfuls of birdseed and hold your hands out, and they could come to you if they wanted to. And so my partner and I, we both get this birdseed, because Maddie loves birds. So we both grab some birdseed, and we just stay there, and we wait for a while. And they're, not super into it for a while. And we're we'll hang out. We have plenty of time to kill. We don't have a dinner reservation for hours. So we stay there for a while, no birds interacting with us. A couple of them, coming out of their little holes, looking at us, saying, compelling. I'm afraid. But then eventually, a bunch of birds came out, and they flew on into our hands, and they sat on our arms, and they ate out of our hands.
Wow.
And it was so beautiful. It was worth the wait. And I texted a photo of it to my family group chat, and my dad responded, "A bird in the hand is worth ... question mark. Where are you?"
That's so funny.
Aww, that's so cute.
So let's jump into our recap. This episode is kind of a strange one, because one team spends most of it on a plane, while the other team is very frantically doing challenges. So at the beginning of the episode, Team Batum get to the airport in Milan and book their flights into and out of Singapore, leaving them with exactly $1.26. They get on the plane to Singapore, and the rest of the episode is Team Jam grinding challenges in Amsterdam at a quarter of the value to get enough money for the Singapore flight that they want that evening. They try to go bird touching, which I've decided is the feral younger sibling sport of bird watching, and Sam eventually gets slapped by a pigeon. They then go to the casino and keep winning on 17 black and odd, giving me heart palpitations, but earning enough money to book their flight to Singapore. We have a quick intermission of Ben taking his Prozac with a 5-hour energy and Adam learning that he really doesn't want to watch Ozark, and then we go right back to Team Jam in Amsterdam, who transfer water from one fountain to another, buy an expensive hat, ascend 500 feet, collect 3 pounds of trash, make a 30-second parkour video, and then finally head to the airport. Team Batum finally make it to Singapore, take bludgeoning damage by how hot and humid it is outside, which made me feel really seen in this here summer, ultimately deciding that they can't go farther before the rest period, and deciding to go bungee jumping, absolutely sniping Team Jam without even realizing it. To conclude our recap, I've come up with a title to highlight the most important moment of the episode. This was the heading for all of Joseph and Sam's shenanigans in my notes, and I felt like it was pretty fitting, so I'm calling this episode Jamsterdam. Do you guys have any alternatives?
God.
That's
no,
perfect.
I can't beat that. Are you kidding me?
Yay!
That's perfect.
And with that, Kira, I'll hand it to you for our Strat Chat.
Thanks, Jaya. Welcome back to the Strat Chat, our segment where we break down the strategy and gameplay of the episode. We started talking about this last week, but I want to talk a little more about the strategy of when to complete generic, easy challenges. For most of this episode, Sam and Joseph grinded through challenges in Amsterdam, all at a quarter value. They did mostly challenges that were relatively low reward, but also could be completed basically anywhere, like eating a McDonald's item that you can't get in the US, buying an expensive hat, filming a parkour video. These can be done pretty much anywhere. They acknowledge that doing all of these challenges in one place will probably put them in a tricky position for when they arrive in Singapore, but it'll also limit Adam and Ben's options a lot. What do you both think of this? Do you think it was worth it to take advantage of their free time and try to complete as many challenges as possible? Is it maybe strategic to try to use up all the easy challenges so the other team can't do them?
So I do think that there is an element of once the money is earned, it's not going anywhere. I do think that there is a positive to just accumulating more money in the bank to be able to put that towards a future flight. And they did have a lot of downtime. I think I would be more concerned if they were sitting there not doing anything. That being said, maybe there was some other planning that could have been done about what happens after their next leg that could have been maybe splitting the time with some of those challenges. But I do think that they're banking money for later.
Yeah. I think I agree with you completely. Like, it's good to be doing something. I like that they were doing challenges even at a quarter value to get money because they didn't have, like, they had basically 8 hours until their flight. So I do think it was ultimately good for them to be doing challenges in that time, but knowing what happens in the next couple episodes of the season, it would have probably been better for them to afford themselves like a little bit more flexibility in Singapore and do either fewer challenges here or plan for more things to go wrong.
I wonder if part of the mental calculus also was that they're starting to realize that they are going to be having fewer flights and so fewer places that they're going to be. And so only one challenge per location is going to be at full value. And then only one challenge is going to be at half value. So if you're planning on doing lots of challenges in general, and you're not going to very many places, a majority of your challenges are going to be done at a quarter value. And so in that way, maybe it is sort of strategic to do them earlier, because then you are taking advantage of your free time and making sure that the other team can't do them later, and just making sure you have money in the bank earlier on in the game, because they're probably not going to be doing these lower reward challenges at full price anyway, because they're going to want to do a bigger challenge for that 100% reward. And so maybe then it does make sense where if you're only going to get $50 because that you're not going to waste your 100% on a $200 reward, then maybe it doesn't really matter where you do those challenges.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I do think at this point in the game, they're realizing that pretty much both teams are going for long-distance, high-cost flights, and so they have fewer locations to do challenges in. I think it does make a lot of sense of, if we're going to be doing this challenge at a quarter of the value anyways, just do it as early as possible. Do it when we have time for it, I guess.
On the other hand, I guess since they did have this long amount of time, do you think that it was strategic to be doing almost exclusively the really easy ones that can be done anywhere? Or should they have tried to spend more time on a longer challenge, like maybe eating at a Michelin star restaurant where they had the time to kill and so they could have done it, but also, if they're only doing it at a quarter value, they are losing quite a lot of money?
I do think that's a good point, and this is where it's tricky. We're looking back on the season as a whole, knowing how it ended up, but there were some high-value challenges that never got completed throughout the game, and I think one of those larger challenges would take longer. You couldn't complete it on a short layover, and so maybe that would have been a better option to research ways of being able to do that when you have this large block of time in a city where you're really able to kind of go around relatively easily.
Yeah. I do think that at this point in the game, though, Joseph and Sam had a decent amount of confidence about where they were going to go, where they really thought they were going to be doing Singapore, then Seoul, then LA.
Yeah.
And with that much confidence, I think then they're sort of planning which challenges to do there already. They know that they can do some of the location-specific challenges in those cities, so they're not super worried about not being able to do them later when they could do them now. I mean, I think, even as we saw in Season 14, confidence can be very dangerous in this game, both in a good way and in a bad way, and this confidence sort of screwed them because they didn't leave themselves enough flexibility in the future.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, we'll have just a quick Strat Chat this week, and so I'll pass things over to Casey.
Thanks, Kira. Welcome back to Jet Lag Confessional, where I bring in a sin from this week's episode and we decide whether it can be forgiven. Now, I know what you're thinking. There are some iffy challenges in this episode that have been cause for strife in fan conversations past, but I'm not going to be opening the can of worms that is climbing that hill a bunch of times, or even buying an expensive hat and then not wearing it. No, the sin that I am presenting to you both today is that parkour video. Can we call that parkour? What do you both think? How severe is this sin?
I have an immediate reaction, which is that I think the spirit of the challenge was not about the parkour, it was about the video. And to that point, I think that they completed the aesthetic and vibe of a parkour video, despite the fact that no parkour was done.
No, I like that argument a lot. I would also, I think, argue that this isn't very much of a sin, but more that it's just, I don't want to see them accidentally getting very, very hurt pretty early into their game. And I think if they had tried to do a real parkour video, they would have hurt themselves. And so I think the spirit of the challenge is, don't hurt yourself, but do as parkour as you can. And, like, they could have definitely done better parkour. I would have loved to see one of them do a cartwheel or a somersault.
That's what I'm asking for. That's
I will say,
saying.
They weren't even really doing anything that physical. Like, they just weren't.
I wish it was a little more physical, even if it wasn't likely to injure them.
They had just run up that hill. Roll down it.
That's
a great point.
That's all I'm saying.
I'm thinking of a parkour video as being the same kind of genre as, like, legal drama, where it could have been like, challenge, create a legal drama video, in which case, like, the vibe and aesthetic would need to be like, we are serious, we are in court, we are saying I object. But, like, they're not going to get a law degree to do that. But I also feel like...
a crazy argument. Parkour
is both a sport and a state of mind.
Parkour is what they're doing, I think.
I know, but I just feel like it's more...
You can't make a parkour video of someone standing there just by, like, zhuzhing up the angles.
And so I agree with that. I do actually think this is a sin, despite the fact that I'm kind of arguing in favor of it. I think that at least if you were to do something in the genre of a legal drama, or in the genre of a buddy comedy, like, in genre form, you at least have to pantomime the thing, and they weren't really pantomiming the thing.
Saying, I would like a bit more commitment here. If I'm artistic directing this, I don't want to see them get injured, but I want more commitment to the bit. You know?
Or, like, use a cool camera angle to be like, whoa, he jumped so high!
That's funny.
I think they had the time. They could have practiced. They could have seen what they were capable of.
They're using straight up B-roll.
Literally climbed 2 feet off the ground onto a lamppost and jumped off. Yeah. I think there were a lot of opportunities for doing parkour that weren't, like, leap over someone's car, and that's really what it seemed like they thought parkour was. I think they need to watch I think it's a Tom Scott video about parkour. They need to watch that and learn that parkour can be anything that you want it to be if you commit to the bit and do something that you're, like, learning how to do that takes a little bit of balance, a little bit of skill, but you're not gonna hurt yourself.
Watching Sam climb so gingerly over that little barricade.
Okay, but that was so funny.
Respectfully, that's not parkour.
You have to, if you're gonna do that, you have to at least look on your face like you're doing something crazy and cool.
Yeah.
I'm sending you guys the Tom Scott parkour video that I'm talking about.
Excellent. The specter of Tom Scott haunts all Jet Lag seasons. So I think that we are saying they did sin, but can we forgive them for this sin?
No!
I actually think that they were wrong and we can't forgive them.
Wow, this is a complete turnaround from Kira.
Until you said, can we forgive them, I did not feel that strongly about this. However, my immediate instinct when you said that was absolutely not.
Well, I feel like there is a difference between
hill.
saying, like, I do think technically they completed the challenge. Like, I don't think that they cheated.
Yes,
However,
I agree.
I do think they were wrong.
I think their parkour sucks, but I do think they completed the challenge and should have gotten a reward.
I do think that this, for me, is worse than Sam's is a human and animal. Which I'm not bothered by that.
I had no problems with a human being an animal.
To me, that's perfectly Taskmaster. That's perfectly within the rules. This, to me, the parkour is worse than that because it's just straight up, you could have done better.
This is so funny because you have completely U-turned on this.
This whole time, I've thought that they didn't do parkour, but they did make a parkour video.
Yeah, and the challenge was make a parkour video. They made a parkour video, but their parkour was not good.
I have the unfortunate opinion that, like, you could make a parkour video of a pigeon. Like, you could use the genre on something else and make it look like a parkour video. But they're not doing parkour.
All right, well, we've determined that they sinned and we cannot forgive them. So until they successfully do parkour, they have sinned. And I will pass things over to Jaya to take us into a game.
Well, speaking of making a parkour video of a pigeon, 2 of the challenges that we see here are 1, bird touching, and 2, ascending 500 feet. Because people argue that this was intended for a mountain or a hill higher than 500 feet, today's train of lies is about birds that live in mountains.
Slay.
Ooh.
We're gonna start with a true or false speedrun. The theme is things my bird friends told me when I asked them for fun facts about mountain birds. Alright, our first true or false bird. Bicknell's thrush only breeds above 3,000 feet in northeastern U.S. mountain forests. These thrushes are polyamorous, and an individual nest can contain eggs from multiple males.
No.
Oh, man.
I think that's wrong.
I don't know.
Not like morally, I just don't think that's true. Let me be clear. We can't even get into it.
I don't know. I feel like birds, like, you hear a lot about how birds are, like, they mate for life.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, there's so much about how birds are monogamous.
But only specific birds. So I feel like this might be true.
Casey, ding, 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 this is true.
Slay.
Second in our speedrun, the whooper swan was discovered to fly above 27,000 feet when an Icelandic pilot hit one with a plane while at full cruising altitude.
That's nuts. That can't be true, because if it is true, I am so afraid.
I think that that's not true because I think that's probably like a different bird. The idea of a swan getting up to full altitude is so scary.
Any bird that's so high up. What are they doing up there?
You guys are gonna love the rest of this game, but you are both corrected as false. It was not hit by a plane, but a pilot did see it and write it down in the official flight book, and that's how people discovered that whooper swans can fly that high.
That's so scary.
So scary.
Could you imagine being on a plane and looking out your window and seeing a bird?
No, that's
above the clouds?
You guys are gonna hate this one. True or false, bar-headed geese regularly fly over Mount Everest.
No!
Over the mountain?
No! It can't be true!
You know what? I'm gonna say true.
No!
This is true. It was first reported in 1953. And it was confirmed when researchers put them in a wind tunnel with backpacks.
No!
That's so scary. Wait, they put backpacks on the geese?
Yeah, like to measure their heart rate and blood pressure and blood oxygen and stuff. True or false? Clark's nutcracker has a mutualistic relationship with high-elevation tree species in the northwestern US and southwestern Canada. The staple food of their diet is pine seeds, but like squirrels and other birds, they store their seeds in the soil for winter. But because they don't ever recover all the seeds they buried in the fall, it's thought that for some high elevation pines, pretty much all the trees that you will see in a certain landscape were planted by a nutcracker.
I think
Wow.
that it's really beautiful that birds are pollinators in some ways. I don't know that they would plant entire forests, but I could see them spreading some trees. So I want to say this is, like, partially true.
I'm also thinking false, just because the extent of the statement, like, that feels really, really extreme. But I could see where it's like 100% of this kind of tree in this forest comes from the bird, but it just feels outlandish to me.
Gotcha! This is true.
Wow.
Slay.
Finally, in our speed run, the American dipper is an aquatic songbird and sometimes makes their nest behind waterfalls, which they have to fly through to get home, just like in Zelda.
I want this to be true.
I also want this to be true. I have an image in my mind's eye, and it must be real.
And you are correct, this is true.
Yay!
Let them be behind waterfalls. Give them a bath.
So for our big round, I've continued the theme of mountain or very high-flying birds, or both. And I have 3 facts about birds that live in mountains, and one of them is a lie. So first, golden eagles live in a huge diversity of habitats spanning a ton of North America, Eurasia, and Northern Africa. They inhabit grasslands, deserts, and notably, mountains up to about 14,000 feet, which is 4,300 meters.
Jeez.
Eagles in general are notorious for their courtship rituals, and speaking of the Bicknell's thrush being poly, they're commonly monogamous. Golden eagles are uniquely known for their spectacular sky dance. This courtship ritual starts with 2 potential mates soaring up to 3,000 feet or higher off the ground, locking talons and entering free fall, spiraling down towards Earth together. They can reach speeds up to 125 miles an hour, or 200 kilometers per hour, and break apart just moments before impact.
Whoa.
And this is just one of many courtship rituals. Our second fact. Now, when I think of birds soaring around high up in the atmosphere, personally, based on my location, I think of turkey vultures. And this seems to be kind of ubiquitous in a lot of places with a handful of different kinds of vultures. For example, legend says that the Greek playwright Aeschylus or something was killed by a tortoise falling from an enormous height onto his bald head. This was then later written off as a folktale, but then it was expanded upon in some poorly researched articles who blamed the poor bearded vulture for killing him. Well, it turns out that the bearded vulture can fly as high as 24,000 feet, or 7,400 meters, above sea level, and they do, in fact, open turtle shells to eat the turtles. Its incredible high flight was noted when it was hit by a plane.
No!
Whoa.
Finally, snowy owls are one of the largest species of owl, and they primarily live in the Arctic. They're strongly nomadic, and their distribution depends really heavily on prey populations, so they're pretty difficult to track. But their breeding grounds includes a good handful of mountains across northern Greenland, isolated parts of the Icelandic Highlands, northern Canada and Alaska, and all the way down to the Scandinavian mountains in Sweden and Norway. What you might not know, though, is that the largest concentration of snowy owls in the American Northeast is at the Boston Logan International Airport. They migrate south for winter, and the airport area looks just like the Arctic tundra, with its short mowed grass, patchy snow, and water on 3 sides. Of course, it is quite dangerous for owls and planes alike for these owls to just be hanging out at the airport, so it's become one guy's life's work to capture these owls and transport them to safer locations by the ocean. Which one of those is a lie?
I don't know if this is the Mandela effect, but I have, like, a tingling in my skin that I've heard all 3 before.
Cool.
Like, all 3 of them feel like they are based in truth.
Well, so this is a little tricky because the vulture one involved a vulture being hit by a plane, which was previously in one of our warm-up round, and that was not true.
Birds get hit by planes.
No, but this is interesting because that one was not true, but I wonder if Jaya, if you put that in after finding out about this story, or if you're double bluffing us and that one is also not true. So that's what's going through my head on that
There's
one.
always Sully. Like, we know that planes hit birds.
Y'all know I love airplane videos. This is just something on my mind at all times.
Although I feel like I have not heard any of these, I really can see the snowy owl one being true. Because I do think that I can see the landscape of an airport being, manicured in a way that is disorienting to birds, especially surrounded by city, where it's not as familiar, and Boston gets so cold and snowy. So I feel like I could see that being true. And I feel like it is so on par with Bostonians to think of, someone being like, no, this is my mission to prevent snowy owls from being at the airport. And then the eagles free-falling is, so beautiful. And I feel like bird, courtship rituals, they all kind of are like that. There is some element of, contact and flying or, So I'm inclined to say that the folklore vulture one is the lie.
I feel like I've heard something about employing at some airport some kind of, conservationist type person for birds. I don't remember anything else, but, something there rings a bell. The vulture also feels reasonable, but there are also a lot of details in it that I think could be fudged, where it's possible that there's not the myth of it, and it's possible that maybe the vulture was dropping something else and not a turtle. There are just a lot of details there that don't resonate quite as much, whereas I feel like the other two feel more correct on the whole. And then also, like Casey was saying, the Golden Eagle courtship display is just so cinematic and stunning that even if it's not true,
so beautiful.
I just have to believe that it's true.
So you're both saying the vultures?
Yeah.
I've bamboozled you.
No!
It was the Golden Eagles.
No! That's the worst one!
No, hold on, don't worry. So a lot of eagles do actually do this sky dance, notably bald eagles. And while Goldens have been described doing the spiral, it is very rare. But Golden Eagles do mate for life. And one of their more common courtship displays is often described as majestic, but feels a little goofy, but still impressive to me. The male birds pick up a piece of rock, or sometimes a stick, fly up really high, drop the rock, and then do a steep dive to catch the rock in midair. And then they have to do this 3 or more times in one courtship display.
And you know what that is? That's parkour. Okay?
That's parkour.
That's parkour. That is what I'm expecting to see. Okay?
That's parkour. That's so funny. But yeah, so the sky dance does happen, but it's a lot more common in bald eagles and very rare in golden eagles.
I'll take it.
So
I'll take
beautiful.
it.
And I can't tell you if the legend about the Greek playwright being killed by a tortoise falling from the sky onto his bald head is true or not, because I wasn't there, but it is a true legend.
But the legend exists.
That rocks.
Yeah, and snowy owls do live at Boston Logan, and every time I fly out of Boston Logan, I look for owls, regardless of the season. And the guy who relocates them is named Norman Smith, and he's been doing this since 1981.
Whoa, that's so awesome. Oh, Boston.
Apparently, according to CBS earlier this year, he has released more than 900 snowy owls that he's rescued from Logan.
That's so many.
That's amazing. The impact that he has as one person is really, that's beautiful.
Isn't that
That's really
so
inspiring.
amazing?
Yeah.
And with that, we'll go into our rose, bloom, and thorns. A reminder while we're in the off-season, the bloom is something that came up in this episode that bloomed into a beautiful flower in a later episode. So Kira, why don't we start with you?
My rose is the absolute comedy of Ben and Adam deciding to go bungee jumping with only $1.26 in their pocket.
God.
I just think that line of reasoning is so funny to me of this might as well happen. My thorn is that Adam's food intake just being 4 donuts and then 2 airplane meals is so sad. The quality of life in these early seasons is just abysmal. And my bloom is that we saw Sam absolutely carrying a physical challenge, no sweat, which is really giving the Schengen Showdown 500,000 burpees at lightning speed. So this is the beginning of Sam just locking in and doing the physical challenge.
Absolutely. Casey, how about you?
My rose is that for some reason, rewatching this episode, and also I remember watching this for the first time, I was just laughing hysterically when Adam talks about how he really just doesn't want to watch Ozark on the plane and that he downloaded the whole season and he just doesn't want to watch it. I just really feel like I relate to that, and there was something so real and funny about that to me. My thorn, look, much love, but some of these challenges are so whack. Like, buy an expensive hat. I just feel like maybe we could have workshopped that one. We could have iterated on that one.
It's so the nature of circumnavigation, though. You gotta be able to buy an expensive hat anywhere.
Fair. My bloom is that we had some mic failures in this episode, and that does not go away in future seasons.
My rose is Ben taking his Prozac with 5-hour energy in an airplane bathroom, saying, "Shot, chaser," was so funny and extremely something I've done before. My thorn is that Ben and Adam keep having moments that would have been really ripe for a snack zone, but they haven't invented the snack zone yet. And every time they're talking about their airplane meals, and I'm like, oh, this would be a great snack zone.
Yeah.
My bloom is Team Jam using fruit snacks as pigeon bait. Felt just like Badam using dried blueberries as duck bait in Australia, and both times it took months off my life. Why are they so bad at birds? And with that, thank you for waiting at Baggage Claim. Let us know your thoughts on socials at baggageclaimpod or over email, which is in the episode description. If you're enjoying the show, please leave us a comment or give us a follow. We'll see you next week as we continue our off-season coverage at the mountainous baggage claim. Wait, it's not actually mountainous. This just in, it's just a series of small hills. Goodbye!
Bye!
Goodbye! That's the craziest trust fall I've ever heard of.
Who will do that with
right?
me?
Me and who?
Bring that for humans. All humans need to go skydiving together, but without a trained professional. They're just like, we'll pull at the right time, right?
Such a funny thing to say when famously our divorced parents have gone skydiving together.